In this video, I am going to tell you what are trains, what are the types of trains, what were the ancient systems of trains, what were wooden rails, and what are metal rails. So let's start step by step. Step number one, what are trains? My dears, a train is a form of rail transport consisting of a series of connected vehicles that generally run along a railroad or railway track to transport passengers or cargo, also known as freight or goods. The word train comes from the old French trahiner, derived from the Latin trahere, meaning to pull or to draw. Motive power for a train is provided by a separate locomotive or individual motors in a self-propelled multiple unit. The term engine is often used as an alternative to locomotive, although historically steam propulsion dominated. The most common types of locomotive are diesel and electric, the latter supplied by overhead wires or additional rails. Trains can also be hauled by horses, pulled by engine or water-driven cable or wire winch, run downhill using gravity, or powered by pneumatics, gas turbines, or electric batteries. The track usually consists of two running rails with a fixed spacing, which may be supplemented by additional rails such as electric conducting rails and rack rails. Monorails and maglev guideways are also occasionally used. Passenger trains include passenger carrying vehicles and can often be very long and fast. High speed rail systems began expanding rapidly in the late 20th century, and this remains a major subject of further development. The term light rail is sometimes used to refer to a modern tram system, but it may also mean an intermediate form between a tram and a train, similar to a heavy rail rapid transit system. Freight trains use freight cars to transport goods or materials. It is possible to carry passengers and freight in the same train using a mixed consist. Rail cars and machinery that are used for the maintenance and repair of tracks are termed maintenance of way equipment. These may be assembled into maintenance of way trains. Similarly, dedicated trains may be used to provide support services to stations along a train line, such as garbage or revenue collection. My dears, step number two, what are the types of trains? There are various types of trains that are designed for particular purposes. A train can consist of a combination of one or more locomotives and attached railroads, cars, or a self-propelled multiple unit, or occasionally a single or articulated powered coach called a rail car. Special kinds of train running on corresponding purpose-built railways or monorails, high-speed railways, maglev, atmospheric rails, rubber-tired underground, funicular, and cog railways. A passenger train consists of one or more locomotives and usually several coaches. Alternatively, a train may consist entirely of passenger carrying coaches, some or all of which are powered. This is known as a multiple unit. In many parts of the world, particularly the Far East and Europe, high-speed rail is used extensively for passenger travel. Freight trains consist of cars, wagons, or trucks rather than carriages, though some parcel and mail trains, especially traveling post offices, appear outwardly to be more like passenger trains. Trains can also have mixed consist with both passenger accommodation and freight vehicles. These mixed trains are most likely to be used for services that run infrequently, where the provision of separate passenger and freight trains would not be cost effective, but the disparate needs of passengers and freight means that this is avoided where possible. Special trains are also used for track maintenance. In some places, this is called maintenance of way. In the United Kingdom, a train hauled using two locomotives is known as a double-headed train. In Canada and the United States, it is quite common for a long freight train to be headed by three or more locomotives. A train with a locomotive attached at both ends is described as top and tailed. This practice typically being used when there are no reversing facilities available, where a second locomotive is attached temporarily to assist a train when ascending steep banks or gradients, or to provide braking power for a descent. This is referred to as banking in the UK. Many loaded trains in the US are assembled using one or more locomotives in the middle or at the rear of the train, which are then operated remotely from the lead cab. This is referred to as DP or distributed power. Step number three, what were the ancient systems of trains? My dears, the history of rail transport began in the prehistoric times. It can be divided into several discrete periods defined by the principal means of track material and motive power used. Ancient systems, the post track a prehistoric causeway in the valley of the River Brue in the summer rest levels, England, is one of the oldest non constructed trackways and dates from around 3838 BC, making it some 30 years older than the sweet track from the same area. Various sections have been scheduled as ancient monuments. Evidence indicates that there was a 6 to 8.5 kilometer long diolkos paved trackway which transported boats across the Isthmus of Corinth in Greece from around 600 BC. Wheeled vehicles pulled by men and animals ran in grooves in limestone which provided the track element preventing the wagons from leaving the intended route. The diolkos was in use for over 650 years until at least the 1st century AD. Paved trackways were also later built in Roman Egypt. In China, a railway has been discovered in southwest Henan province near Nanyang city. It was carbon dated to be about 2200 years ago from Qin dynasty. The rails are made from hardwood and treated against corrosion, while the sleeper railway ties made from wood that were not treated and therefore have rotted. Kin railway sleeper was designed to allow horses to gallop through, which would go to the next rail station, which would then be swapped for a fresh horse. The railway is theorized to have been used for transportation of goods to the frontline troops and to fix the Great Wall. Step number four, what were wooden rails? My dears, in 1515, Cardinal Matthias Lang wrote a description of the Reichsweg, a funicular railway at the Hohenzollernsberg fortress in Austria. The line originally used wooden rails and a hemp haulage rope and was operated by human or animal power. Through a trade wheel, the line still exists and remains operational, although in updated form. It may be the oldest operational railway. Wagonways or tramways with wooden rails and horse-drawn traffic are known to have been used in the 1550s to facilitate transportation of ore tubs to and from mines. They soon became popular in Europe, and an example of their operation was illustrated by Georgius Agricola in his 1556 work De Re Metallica. This line used hunt carts with unflanged wheels running on wooden planks and a vertical pin on the truck fitting into the gap between the planks to keep it going to the right way. The miners called the wagons hunde. From the noise they made on the tracks, there are many references to wagonways in Central Europe in the 16th century. A wagonway was introduced to England by German miners at Carlbeck, Cumbria, possibly in the 1560s. A wagonway was built at Prescott near Liverpool sometime around 1600, possibly as early as 1594. Owned by Philip Layton, the line carried coal from a pit near Prescott Hall to a terminus about half a mile away. A funicular railway was made at Bruceley in Shropshire sometime before 1604. This carried coal for James Clifford from his mines down to the River Severn to be loaded onto barges and carried to riverside towns. The Voleton wagonway, completed in 1604 by Huntingdon Beaumont, has sometimes erroneously been cited as the earliest British railway. It ran from Striley to Voleton near Nottingham. The Middleton Railway in Leeds, which was built in 1758, later became the world's oldest operational railway other than funiculars, albeit now in an upgraded form. In 1764, the first railway in America was built in Lewiston, New York. Step number five, what are metal rails? My dears, the introduction of steam engines for powering blast air to blast furnaces led to a large increase in British iron production after the mid 1750s. In the late 1760s, the Coal Brookdale Company began to fix plates of cast iron to the upper surface of wooden rails, which increased their durability and load bearing ability. At first, only balloon loops could be used for turning wagons, but later movable points were introduced that allowed passing loops to be created. A system was introduced in which unflanged wheels ran on L-shaped metal plates. These became known as plateways. John Kerr, a Sheffield collier manager, invented this flanged rail in 1787, though the exact date of this is disputed. The plate rail was taken up by Benjamin Outram for wagonways, serving his canals, manufacturing them at his Butterley Iron Works. In 1803, William Jessup opened the Surrey Iron Railway, a double-track plateway sometimes erroneously cited as world's first public railway in South London. In 1789, William Jessup had introduced a form of all-iron edge rail and flanged wheels for an extension to the Charnwood Forest Canal at Nenpenton, Loughborough, Leicestershire. In 1790, Jessup and his partner Outram began to manufacture edge rails. Jessup became a partner in the Butterley Company in 1790. The first public edgeway, thus also first public railway built, was the Lake Lock Railroad in the 1796. Although the primary purpose of the line was to carry coal, it also carried passengers. These two systems of construction iron railways, the L-plate rail and the smooth edge rail, continued to exist side by side into the early 19th century. The flanged wheel and edge rail eventually proved its superiority and became the standard for railways. Cast iron was not a satisfactory material for rails because it was brittle and broke under heavy loads. The wrought iron rail invented by John Brickenshaw in 1820 solved these problems. Wrought iron, usually simply referred to as iron, was a ductile material that could undergo considerable deformation before breaking, making it more suitable for iron rails. But wrought iron was expensive to produce until Henry Cort patented the purling process in 1784. In 1783, Cort also patented the rolling process, which was 15 times faster at consolidating and shaping iron than hammering. This process greatly lowered the cost of production. These processes greatly lowered the cost of producing iron and iron rails. The next important development in iron production was hard blast, developed by James Beaumont Nelson, patented 1828, which considerably reduced the amount of coke, fuel, or charcoal needed to produce pig iron. Wrought iron was a soft material that contained slag or dross. The softness and dross tended to make iron rails distort and delaminate, and they typically lasted less than 10 years in use, and sometimes as little as 1 year under high traffic. All these developments in the production of iron eventually led to replacement of composite wood or iron rails with superior all-iron rails. The introduction of the Bessemer process, enabling steel to be made inexpensively, led to the era of great expansion of railways that began in the late 1860s. Steel rails lasted several times longer than iron. Steel rails made heavier locomotives possible, allowing for longer trains and improving the productivity of railroads. The Bessemer process introduced nitrogen into the steel, which caused the steel to become brittle with age. The open hearth furnace began to replace the Bessemer process near the end of 19th century, improving the quality of steel and further reducing costs. Steel completely replaced the use of iron in rails, becoming standard for all railways. So my dears, this was our video. Now I wanna turn it over to you. Which step you like the most? Tell me in the comments. My dears, make sure to subscribe this channel so you don't miss out on my future videos. If you want that this video should be in Urdu language or Hindi language, then the video which is in front of your eyes is in Hindi or Urdu language. You can check it out and can get knowledge more easier. Goodbye, stay blessed, and bundle of thanks for watching.